He didn't leave suddenly. He reorganized his life until I no longer fit inside it. I didn't find messages. I didn't catch him in a lie. I realized I was already replaced by noticing what disappeared first: my place, my voice, my space. This isn't a story about cheating. It's about what happens when someone erases you quietly, and what it takes to stop being erasable. Throwaway because a couple friends know my main, and I don't want this to become a "you should have seen it coming" conversation. I did see it coming. That's the problem. I just didn't have proof yet. I've always been too much in small ways. Too many colors in my closet, too many tabs open in my brain, too many unfinished sketches on every surface. Even my laughter has edges. I don't float through rooms, I leave fingerprints. I used to think that was my charm. Jacob was the opposite. Beige in the safest possible way, clean lines, soft voice, a calendar that looked like a ruled notebook. When we first met, his calm felt like shade on a hot day. He spoke like he had nothing to apologize for. He folded silence into the space between sentences and somehow made it feel respectful. Our apartment became a compromise between my chaos and his order. My paintbrushes in jars, his keys always on the same hook, my music drifting through the kitchen, his quiet mornings with coffee measured to the gram. He called it balance. I called it learning. But over time, balance started to sound like adjustment, and adjustment started to mean me. My colors dimmed, my noise softened, my presence became something that could be moved, like furniture. And I didn't notice the first time my place disappeared, because it happened politely. Jacob loved routines the way some people love surprises. His rituals had a comforting rhythm. Same cafe on Saturdays, same path through the park, same brand of laundry detergent because it works. The kind of predictability you can lean on. At first, I leaned. I even liked it. I liked how he remembered to pay bills on time, how he kept receipts in neat little envelopes, how he made the world feel less jagged. When you're a person who feels everything loudly, someone else's quiet can feel like permission to breathe. Our beginning was sweet in a structured way. He planned dates that started and ended on schedule. He introduced me to his friends with a gentle hand at my back, like he was guiding me into a room that already had rules. People loved him. It was easy to love someone who never raised his voice. And I loved him too, maybe because he looked like a promise: stability, safety, adulthood. But even then, there were small tells. A pause when I spoke about my work, like he was waiting for the point. The way he'd adjust the volume down without asking. The way he'd smile when I said something impulsive, like you smile at a child running too fast. Just slow down, he'd say, soft as a suggestion. I mistook it for care. It wasn't that he wanted to change me dramatically. Jacob wasn't a storm. He didn't break things. He reorganized them. He moved my wildness into smaller and smaller containers until it fit his shelves. And I let him, because I thought love was making space. I didn't realize he was making space too. There's a specific kind of shrinking that doesn't feel like pain. It feels like being reasonable. I stopped leaving sketchbooks open on the couch because Jacob liked clean surfaces. I started rinsing my mugs immediately instead of letting them sit for later. I lowered my voice on calls, even when I was excited, because he worked from home and needed focus. My laughter turned into a quieter version of itself, like a song playing through a wall. He never demanded. He suggested. He didn't say no. He said, "Do we need that?" He didn't criticize. He offered a better way. At first I told myself it was growth, that I was becoming more adult, more polished, less messy. The apartment reflected it. The bright little clutter that used to make our place feel lived in, postcards, candles, random art supplies, slowly vanished into drawers. When I opened cabinets, everything looked like it had been purchased as a set. Even the air smelled different, less paint and incense, more detergent and lemon cleaner. One day I noticed my favorite chair by the window had been moved. It wasn't gone, just shifted, closer to the wall, angled away from the light. Jacob did it while I was out. "It makes the room feel bigger," he said. "More open." I sat there anyway, and the sunlight didn't hit my knees like it used to. I felt oddly misplaced, like the room had rearranged itself around someone else's comfort. That night, he kissed me with the same gentle precision, then rolled over and fell asleep like a lamp being switched off. I stared at the ceiling and tried to remember when my life started feeling like it belonged to a schedule that wasn't mine. People imagine cheating as noise, arguments, suspicion, a phone that never leaves a hand, lipstick stains, late-night confessions. That's not how it happened. Jacob didn't become careless, he became consistent. That's what made it terrifying. The first thing I noticed was time, not missing time, accounted for time. He started staying late on the same day every week, always Tuesday, always the same explanation. A meeting that ran long, a project that needed extra attention, a coworker who needed help. He'd come home with that calm face, like nothing had happened except productivity. He didn't act guilty. He acted efficient. Then came the micro changes. The way he started showering as soon as he got home, even if he wasn't sweaty. The way his phone stayed face down, not hidden, just turned away, like it was being polite. The way he'd stand slightly farther from me in the kitchen, as if there was an invisible boundary line. Most of all, I noticed absence inside presence. I'd talk and he'd nod, but his attention wasn't fully there. His became a habit, not a response. When I reached for him in bed, he'd still touch me back, carefully, like a chore done well. But something essential was missing. The warmth, the hunger, the feeling of being chosen. It wasn't a sudden betrayal, it was an evacuation. And the strangest part? I didn't feel shocked. I felt confirmed, like my body had been collecting quiet evidence for weeks. I started recognizing the pattern. He wasn't leaving me in a storm. He was leaving me in a schedule. Once you sense you're being replaced, you start noticing how much of your life is made of small permissions. I found a new mug in the cabinet one morning, plain white, heavy ceramic, the kind Jacob liked. I didn't buy it. When I asked, he shrugged. Work thing, he said. They were giving them out. It sat on the counter like it belonged. Like it had always belonged. My bright chipped mug with the little painted suns suddenly looked childish beside it. Then the fridge changed. Different yogurt brand. A salad dressing I hated. Tiny shifts that made the kitchen feel like it had another resident. Jacob said nothing. He didn't explain. He didn't ask me what I liked. He simply introduced new objects, and our home quietly adjusted around them. That was his gift. Reality manipulation through order. I tried to be rational. I told myself I was spiraling, that I was looking for ghosts. But my instincts have always been sharper than my logic. I've spent my whole life reading rooms, people's moods, the weight of silence, the way a conversation tilts. Jacob's silence had weight now. It pressed down on the corners of the apartment. Even his kindness started to feel rehearsed, like he was performing good boyfriend the way he performed good employee. One night, while he slept, I stood in the hallway and looked at our coats. Mine was squeezed between his and a newer one that didn't fit either of us. It was too small for Jacob, too neutral for me. Beige. Of course it was beige. I didn't touch it. I just stared until my throat tightened. I realized then that I wasn't searching for proof. I was watching the process, and by the time I could name it, my place had already been moved. I didn't confront him. Not because I was afraid, and not because I needed more evidence. Because confrontation is a kind of gift. It gives someone the chance to rewrite the story. Jacob loved stories with clean endings. If I came at him with tears and accusations, he'd become calm and reasonable, and I'd become emotional. He'd explain. He'd apologize in tidy sentences. He'd offer solutions. He'd control the narrative the way he controlled everything else. So I stayed quiet. I started collecting reality the way Jacob collected receipts. I noted the Tuesdays, the exact time he left, the exact time he came back. I noticed the shirt he wore more often on those days, the one that fit him slightly better, like he'd become aware of his own body again. I noticed he started using a different cologne, subtle but new, like someone had gifted him an idea of himself. I watched him text with his phone angled away from me, not hiding, just excluding. That was Jacob's style. Never cruel enough to be obvious, never messy enough to be accused. And I watched myself, too. I stopped shrinking. Quietly, internally, I expanded again. Not in ways he would notice right away. I started sketching in a new notebook I kept in my bag, not on the coffee table. I started taking longer walks alone. I let my laughter return when I was with friends. I wore colors again, deep red, electric blue, small rebellions under my coat. Control is a language Jacob understands, so I spoke it. I didn't need to catch him in the act. I didn't need screenshots. I didn't need a dramatic reveal. I only needed one thing, the moment when his reputation, his precious, polished order, couldn't protect him, and I knew exactly where order goes to die, in public. Jacob's biggest fear wasn't being hated, it was being seen incorrectly. He lived for the approval of people who loved him precisely because he was safe, reliable, calm, the man you'd trust with a spare key, the man mothers adored and co-workers leaned on. He had a curated gentleness that made everyone assume he could never be the villain in anyone's story. So I didn't try to make him a villain. I let him remain exactly what he was, just in sharper lighting. I started preparing for my gallery event with a focus that surprised even me. I'd always created from chaos, bursts of inspiration, late nights, paint on my hands, a room full of half-formed ideas. This time was different. This time was method. My new series was about absence, about negative space, about how a room can feel full even when something essential has been removed. I photographed ordinary domestic details, a chair angled away from the light, a single coat on a hook, a coffee mug left untouched, a bed made too neatly. I wrote small captions in clean type, short sentences, like notes, like evidence, like prayers you whisper when you don't want anyone to hear you begging. Jacob barely looked at the pieces while I worked. "That's interesting," he'd say, polite. But I saw him checking the invite list. I saw him asking how many people would be there. I saw the relief on his face when I mentioned his co-workers might come. He wanted to be the supportive boyfriend in public. He wanted to stand beside me and look good doing it. I let him. Because Jacob didn't understand what it meant to walk into a room where someone else controls the story. And the night of the gallery, I wore a dress that was unapologetically bright, like a warning. The gallery was loud in that specific, restrained way. Soft voices, clinking glasses, the clean smell of paint and wine. White walls, cold light, nowhere to hide. Jacob arrived looking perfect. Neutral suit, calm smile. He kissed my cheek like he was checking in. Then he took his usual place near the wall, a man taped neatly into a space he didn't understand. We moved through the exhibit slowly. He looked, but didn't see. The discomfort showed in small ways. The pause before each step, the way his eyes searched for something familiar. He stopped at the photograph of our hallway, the empty hook, the caption beneath it. There was room, so he made room. His jaw tightened. At the final installation, the calendar pages repeated the same week, every Tuesday marked. One word beneath each, absence. I stepped close and said it quietly, only for him. He didn't cheat in a storm, I said. He cheated in a schedule. For the first time, his calm didn't protect him. No one reacted loudly, no gasps, no accusations. The room simply shifted. Smiles hesitated. Conversations slowed. People studied the calendar pages longer than necessary, then glanced at Jacob with new calculations behind their eyes. Recognition doesn't need confirmation. It only needs structure. Jacob tried to speak, but his voice lost its authority. Polite words landed softer than he expected. His reputation didn't collapse. It fractured. He leaned toward me. "What is this?" he asked carefully. I didn't answer. Silence was his own language, and now he had to sit inside it. He had already practiced my absence. He had created space without ever saying my name. All I did was show the shape of that space. Once framed, it couldn't be unseen. On the drive home, Jacob kept his hands steady on the wheel. Order intact, voice controlled. "We should talk," he said. The apartment greeted us with its familiar alignment. Clean surfaces, lemon cleaner, everything where it belonged. It looked untouched. I wasn't. In the hallway, I removed my coat. Then I took the smaller beige one beside it, the one that never belonged to me, and placed it on the floor. Jacob flinched. "You thought you could replace me quietly," I said. "So I made sure you couldn't forget me." There was no victory in it, only clarity. I didn't leave in a storm. I left in my own color.